Well, good morning. Welcome. Welcome to Rotman. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tiff, Macklem. I have the great privilege of being the Dean of the Rotman School. But much more importantly, this morning, I am the chair of the panel, Ontario's panel on economic growth and prosperity. And a number of the panelists are here this morning. Thank you for coming. It is an impressive panel of leaders of Ontario's economy. And this morning we are releasing the first annual report, which comes out under the leadership of this panel. The panel replaces the Task Force on Competitiveness, Productivity and Economic Progress. And the mandate of the panel is to provide guidance on the Institute's research on raising Ontario's competitiveness and productivity. It's an important job. The panel's met a number of times, and it's been very helpful in setting the broad agenda for the Institute. And there have been really three key elements. First, take a broader look at prosperity in Ontario. We tend to focus, and we're going to focus today on productivity, GDP per capita. But let's face it, that's one measure of prosperity. And when you think of all the things people care about, it's a lot more than GDP per capita. And so in a working paper that came out about a month ago, we looked at a broader set of indicators of Ontario's prosperity. We called the title of the working paper, Looking Beyond GDP, Measuring Prosperity in Ontario. And what came through actually was somewhat intuitive. If you look at broader measures of prosperity, Ontario actually does reasonably well. It feels much more like the Ontario that we've decided to live in and work in and raise our families in. It does well on things like health, on access to services, on security. And when you look at there were 10 indicators which we benchmarked against our peer jurisdictions. And what you see is that we do fairly well on a number of the more socioeconomic indicators. But on the kind of narrow economic indicators, we continue to lag significantly, particularly the ones in the broader income and jobs. And that really pointed us back to sort of our core agenda that, well, it's not to say there aren't some other improvements we could make on these broader indicators, but if you really want to improve Ontario's prosperity, that one is the one where we lag the most. That's the one where we have to catch up. The second bit of direction from the panel was that the tradition of the Institute for Competitiveness and Prosperity is to take a very macro view of competitiveness, of productivity. And you know, at some level, that's very helpful. You know, the first step to reform is to being self-aware, measuring the problem, and you can see it very clearly at the macro level. But if you really want to do something about it, you've got to look under the hood. You've got to get a little more granular. You've got to look at the different pieces of the economy. And so that's what we're doing in this annual report. We're going to take a deeper dive on a number of sectors that we think are high productivity sectors, are sectors that produce high wage jobs, are R&D intensive, are export intensive, and we take a look at what are the opportunities in these sectors. You know, the reality is if you want to get more productivity, if you want to be more competitive, if you can grow your most competitive and most productive sectors, it's going to pull up the average across Ontario. It's going to create more high wage jobs. And the third bit of direction, which is a preview for what's coming, was to take a more forward-looking, research agenda for Ontario's economy. So we're working on it right now, and it's coming. But typically, the Institute uses historical data, and of course, by its very nature, if it's historical data, it's going to be somewhat backward-looking. So in this more forward-looking element, what we're doing is we're reaching out to 30 or so CEOs, as well as some up-and-comers within their companies who are really building for the future, and interviewing them about where do they see, where are the opportunities for Ontario, and what does Ontario need to do to seize those opportunities. So that is a preview for the next time I see you. But let me just give you a little roadmap of what you're going to see today. So I will start by briefly reviewing the aggregate, the macro analysis, and wait for it. Ontario continues to lag at a macro level. I know it's a familiar story from the Institute. And then we're going to drill down on, as I said, 4 areas where Ontario is actually doing quite well: finance and insurance, life sciences, metal ore mining, and motor vehicle parts and manufacturing, and look at what are the opportunities, what are the challenges in these sectors, and then finally we'll wrap up with some broader conclusions. And one thing you'll see about these 4 sectors is, not only are they sectors not only are they drivers of Ontario's economy, they also span the geography of the province, from downtown Toronto to northern Ontario, and most places in between.